Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner Studio. With me today is Walter Mabe. I call him Walt for short. Walter is running for the Shenandoah District Board of Supervisors seat against Tom Sayre's seat. So we'll see how that goes. Here we got a few questions to ask you, Walt. And typically, first of all, let's just start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I can give a quick summary on who I am, where I've come from. My name is Walt Mabe. I came from Eden, North Carolina in 1953. Born there, raised there, went to school there, graduated high school. After high school, I went to join the Marine Corps. Spent some time in the Marine Corps. Was involved in aviation electronics for a number of years. Helped fly the Commandant of the Marine Corps around. I was part of his crew. And that's where the Marine Corps broke me down emotionally, physically, and then taught me how to be the man that I am today.
They do that. They build you up.
They do. They build you up and you become part of a brotherhood. Now, I met my lovely wife after I got out of the military and after a stint with some small electronic companies in Northern Virginia area, and moved down to Roanoke because that was where my home base was at the time. And at that time, we came back to Front Royal and made this our home.
Is she from Front Royal?
She is from Front Royal.
Well, no wonder you're here. You got to go where Mama goes. I know how that works.
That's right. My kids graduated high school here. She graduated high school here. And we learned to build a family and develop roots. And after the kids graduated high school, they both run off, which the way kids do.
Yeah, sometimes they come back.
Yeah. And fortunately, mine never did.
Good. You trained them right,
We
Walt.
trained them right. Well, we
haven't come back yet. That's the story.
We followed them. We followed my daughter all the way back out to California. Gave up everything that we had here, moved out to California, trying to pick up another life. Our next life took me into Las Vegas, Nevada, where we set up Household. Spent 21 years there, a little bit more actually, but spent 21 plus years there working with the telecommunications industry. And my job was as a project manager. And in being a project manager and doing the things that were necessary, I took on projects that were problems. I took on cell sites that were problems and turned those problems into positives for both my customer and the people that I worked for. And I worked for people like Sprint, AT&T, T-Mobile, not small groups. And I worked
big problems for big solutions.
That's right. My biggest project was 1,900 sites in the California area. But California wasn't the only place that I worked. I worked in Nevada, which was a big market for me.
Sure.
Spent 5 or 6 years actually doing their work. Salt Lake City, Utah, Phoenix, Arizona, Georgia.
Sounds like a song.
Kansas. Yeah, I know. It's a country song waiting to happen.
That's right, exactly.
But I got my roots, and I built my teeth on taking the problems, understanding them, facilitating all of the things that were necessary, solving them through teamwork and communication efforts, and building relationships with all of the people that were involved in my work. And it made my customer happy. It made my end customer happy, which was the people that were buying cell phones.
Exactly.
And that's where I feel that I can actually be a help to the community.
Well, project planners, you have to start at the beginning and go all the way to the end and find solutions and get people to cooperate.
That's exactly right. And
sounds like a politician or a good community leader. Sounds like a pretty good plan.
Truthfully, I'm not a politician. Don't claim to be, but I'm going to get labeled that as soon as I'm elected.
As soon as you are, yeah, exactly. It's kind of one of those labels we really don't want sometimes. We
You gather it.
You gather it. That's a good way to look at it. So, talk about problems. What do you think the biggest problem we have here in the county right at the moment?
I think the biggest problem is the lack of community involvement, where the community doesn't really understand all of the things that are going on. There are issues out there. There's no doubt about that. And those issues have to be looked at, resolved, facilitated. They have to be broken down to where people understand it. And part of the job of the supervisor is to actually disseminate information that's good, that will help them to understand. And I know that there are issues worth millions of dollars. Let's understand what the problem is. Let the people that are involved in it do their jobs, and the truth will fall out. I'm not going to let anything get swept under the rug, because it could feasibly be tried to happen. I mean, there will be people out there that will try to just get rid of it, make it go away.
Right.
I'm not going to let that happen. I want to be one of those people that will stand up and yell at the top of their voice and say, this is wrong, and this is why. And do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And then take it back to the constituents and say, this is wrong, and this is why, and this is how we're going to fix it. Or can we fix it? Maybe we can't. Mm-hmm. We get good information, we get bad information, but we work with the information that we've got.
What's the filter? One of the things I always say in a management tool is inspect what you expect.
That's
and
correct.
That seems to kind of been lacking here lately. That like there's too many in the, what do they call that, in the hen house? No, the fox is watching the hen house.
The fox is watching the hen house.
Right.
And I want to be able to say I'm part of the solution, not part of the problem, and I will be part of the solution.
Well, this takes us to part of our problems. As you know, the giant in the room is the EDA scandal that we had.
Yeah, that's
going.
the elephant sitting over there that we don't want to talk about.
That's right. But what we've gathered so far could be literally the tip of the iceberg. We really don't know, based on sometimes communications, and some people just don't know, and it is being looked into. How do you think all this occurred?
I think it occurred in several ways. I mean, I believe that the EDA board did not oversee their own people. Big issue. I believe that the Board of Supervisors did not oversee the EDA. They help establish that. They help fund that. They should have some oversight over that. And they should have been screaming at the top of their lungs with their constituents saying, this is wrong.
Inspect what you expect.
That's correct. I believe that the town council did not go far enough to make sure that the loan that they were willing to give, $10 million, was to a company that was truly real. I mean, how do we really know, and I don't know if we know to this date, if they have $140 million worth of contracts? We lent them money against it. The money's outstanding. The guy's paying us back. I appreciate that. But we should have known beforehand. And somebody should have stood up and said, this is wrong.
Right. We loaned the money out for a purpose of building a business.
That's correct.
So far, we really haven't got much of a business. We've been given the business.
We've been given the business, and none of that $10 million has come back into our community.
Right.
And that's wrong.
Right.
Let's not continue to go wrong. Let's go right. And the only way that we're going to do that is through the people communicating the problems to their supervisors.
So what would you like to ask Mr. Sayre?
Oh, goodness.
or any supervisor?
Any supervisor. I would like to ask a supervisor or the supervisors, why did you let that train leave the station at all? You should have stood up, got the people behind it. I don't care if it was a senator from Virginia. I believe that there was enough red flags to where every one of them should have stood up and held their hand way high in the air and saying something's wrong.
Well, it's not like they didn't know. The Royal Examiner, has printed over 200 stories in the last 3 years on just this EDA project. Over 200 stories. Somewhere in those 200 stories should have drawn some red flags that there's a problem. Obviously, the Virginia State Police read them and decided there's a problem, and the FBI decided there's a problem, but it seems like our local governments just kind of turned a blind eye to it. It's really something that I think we're going to see coming up in the election. I think the public is going to demand new leadership.
Absolutely. And I want to be one of those leaders.
Well, you're 65 years old, you've retired. What in the world made you decide to go? You think it's your time to give back? That's kind of the...
Well, that can be part of it, but I look at all of the issues or all of the things that are happening in the county here, and I hear all of the complaints and all of the problems and how all of the factions are split, and I think that it's time to bring those people back. And
Excuse me.
I have some of the same problems and same thoughts as everybody else has. And I believe that it was just my time to stand up and say this is wrong.
It takes time to be on the Board of Supervisors. It's not something, they say, oh, it's 2 meetings a month, but there's a lot of time involved, and I don't think people, even giving credit to people that are in our government, they do get a stipend. I mean, it is really barely enough to pay your gas running around the county, but, excuse me, but it does take a lot of personal time.
Yes. And you got to be willing to give it. And you also got to be willing, or I shouldn't say willing, you should have it available to give.
Right.
And I am semi-retired. I've got the time. I've got the energy. I've got the desire to bring our community back.
Good.
And make the community what it should be. I want to know all of my neighbors. I want to sit on my street and somebody walk by and come on my porch and sit down and tell me their problems.
Right.
And they're open to do that.
So we're going to have coffee with Walt?
Oh, several of those. Plenty of those between now and election time.
And maybe even afterwards?
Even afterwards. They're still welcome.
So you're encouraging this community involvement?
Absolutely. My business card will have my home address on it and my cell phone. They can call me. They can do that now. I don't care. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. You'll have a few people that'll bend your ear, but most will be very serious and concerned as you are.
I hope that, because I believe that people that are doing that can come back to their elected officials and give that elected official an honest, open discussion and hopefully part of a solution.
Right.
Some of the solutions are bad, some of them are good.
Right.
The business of being a supervisor is to blend all of those together, hopefully come up with a solution that affects and makes the county better.
We hope so. That's what everybody's plan should be. You speaking about different people and communicating, we have this great monster out there, social media.
Yes.
And we have people that really, it's kind of like people that don't register to vote, they don't vote, but boy, they sure complain.
They can sure yell on social media.
And they get on social media, they may be voters, but what they do is that, I call it the anonymity of the keyboard. They're really anxious to get out there, but they really don't know what's going on, and they really don't want to know what's going on, but they want to just complain. So
yes.
It kind of boils down to campaigning as well. You got ones that all they'll do is sling mud and talk about negative things, but they're not going to talk about solutions. And you see that a lot on what we call so-called politicians. They just want to, the other guy's a jerk, he needs to be thrown out, and well, then what are you going to do? So what kind of campaign are you going to run?
I don't intend to run a negative campaign at all. I hope my opponent does the same thing. I don't know the man, and I understand that he's the only thing that I do know is that I believe that he's a good father. I believe that he's a religious man, but other than that, I have not sit in Board of Supervisors meetings. I have only hearsay hearsay is not the correct answer. I'm not going to run a negative campaign. If he wants to, fine.
The supervisors sometimes get into the politics. They get into the party politics as well, and you're seeing that in some of the races. The sheriff's race, for instance, has become partisan. What about the supervisors? I mean, what do you think about party? And we have some that have gone into it in the past, and our supervisors, the Republicans or they're Democrats, and they sometimes what we call toe the party line.
Correct.
I thought supervisors should be independent.
I believe that I am an independent, and I don't want somebody else telling me what to do at all. I want my constituents to tell me what they want. I believe that party politics should evaporate once the election's done. And if it doesn't, how can a supervisor gather information and present something that's beneficial for the whole county? If this person is telling them to do this and this person is telling them to do that, it doesn't work that way, or shouldn't work that way.
Or they're worried about, they start running for re-election as soon as they get elected.
And if you don't, if you don't like the current guy that's there, vote him out. I'm the guy.
Right.
When I'm 4 years into this, if you don't like the guy, vote him out.
That's why that's how we have term limits.
That's correct.
People say, "Oh, we need term limits." So I said, "We have term limits. It's called the voter."
That is correct.
So people are going to ask, "So are you? You're an independent, but I take it you're a fiscal conservative?"
Yes, I am.
Great. I think the county, we spend a lot of money. The budget is a big hot item in the county. Every budget cycle, people go ballistic when they start seeing how much money that they've got to pay for what they're getting for it.
And the budget, of course, is one of the biggest, is the biggest item. And people don't want to spend the money, never have, and they don't want to. But part of the supervisor's job is to take the information that they're given through the budget that they're going to look at. They should be able to understand it, dissect it, believe that the budget that's presented in front of them is a true and good budget for the people. It shouldn't be blown out of proportion anywhere.
Right.
And unless you have the ability to look at a budget, understand it, dissect it, and say, is this a need or a want? If you want it, that's good, but this year, you're not going to get it.
So what do you, typically what they do is they look at last year's budget and say, what else do you need? I think probably in your process, you started with zero-based budgeting. You start at the bottom and just
work your way up. How much is it going to cost you to do this? Well, can you not do it differently to accomplish the same thing? And that differently may save $1 million someplace. You never know.
Sometimes it does. Yeah, I can remember some of the things the town has done, just knocking a year off here or there, or doing something as millions of dollars. When you're dealing with big numbers, the law of large numbers, when you're dealing with those big numbers, and a lot of people don't have a grasp of, in our, maybe we can understand, 50,000, 100,000. We start getting into millions and millions and millions. That's a lot of zeros, and one little percent here and a fraction over here adds up to a lot of money.
And you never know. If you drop it enough, you might have a actual decrease in taxes.
Right. If you start at zero.
Start from zero, no telling where you can go.
Right. Because we have, the school system is a large chunk of our budget.
Yes, it is.
And it seems like whatever the school wants, the school gets. But yet we have schools that aren't accredited. We have now just one, I think, in a pending situation. But in the years past, we've had, they think the answer to their schools is building new buildings,
right.
Which we do have beautiful school buildings now. We have a couple that are still in...
The paint's still not dry yet.
Yeah, well, and the paint's what's holding the building together, I think. on some
it is
of
a two-sided fence.
It is a two-sided fence. So everything is two-sided. So we have schools. We have developers trying to put developments in and out of the county. These are all things that right now people are really concerned about. Are we going to build? Why are we building 1,000 homes on one side of town when we have 1,000 homes that over here that's ready to go.
That's ready to go.
That's doing it. So there's a lot of things like that. Are they being done because someone's getting? Everybody feels that everything's under the table. There's not any transparency in these deals sometimes.
Well, I believe that the people need to understand what's really happening. Maybe it's the right time to build 1,000 homes on one side of the town.
Right.
Because it's the right time. I don't know the answer to that. And I won't know until I'm elected. But what I do believe is when we go back to the education question, I believe that every child should have the opportunity to get the best education they can get. Whether it's homeschooling, whether it's church-based schools, whether it's public schools, whatever. I believe that they all should have that opportunity. And it's up to us and the supervisors and the board of schools to determine what is best for the community and for the schools. And we're paying for it.
We're paying.
And we're paying dearly for it. It's the largest thing on the budget.
It is the largest. And again, that's our future of our community, future of our country.
That's correct.
We need to really look into that. And I think the answer, like you've expressed, is when you have all the information, you can make a really good decision.
Yes, I believe that to be true.
It's when you don't, and if you don't ask questions, if you don't go after the information, then it's hard to make that decision. So something I think you said is, you can just watch the meetings sometimes, and I'm sitting in the audience and I'm thinking, well, I have this question, and no one asks a question of anybody.
And the person that should be asking the question to the group may be the supervisors. I know they're sitting there and they're supposed to listen and come back with the truth. A lot of times the truth hurts those that ask the question.
Right, it does.
And it's actually hard to do that. But we've got to learn to do it better through good forums and through good communication and good interaction between our districts. I'm all for making communication a top priority and making community-based coming together a priority.
Right.
Has to be.
Well, what we hope for in the future, then we'll see from the desk of Walt Mabe, Board of Supervisors. So every month you're going to give us a little blurb of what's going on. I keep asking for that, but I've never seen anybody do it.
I know, and I thought about that long and hard, and I am committing to giving back to the community in the form of information at our polling stations. I mean, if I can rent a room, I'm willing to go back once a quarter. Once at the fire station and once at the oh goodness, I'm drawing a blank on the other one.
65 years old.
65.
The rec center.
The rec center.
Yeah.
One time at the rec center, one time at the fire hall.
Right.
If I can get the room and I can bring people together, I want to be able to do that once a quarter. So 1 quarter at one place, 1 quarter at the next place. It gives, and everybody can come either place.
Sure.
But you make the effort. And I don't think that effort's being made right now.
Even if no one shows up, you at least may give people the opportunity.
I will have a lot of coffee left over.
That's right. Coffee with Walt. We're going to be looking for that. I appreciate it. Anything else you want to say? We've talked a lot about things, but this is only the beginning. And as it gets closer to the election, we're going to have you come back in again, and we'll see how things are going. You're just now dipping your toe in,
right?
And it'll start here sooner than you realize, and it'll start speeding up. But
I believe that we have got to come together. And I believe that we've got to solve the budget issues. And I believe that we've got to get the best education that we can for our people. And I believe that we as a community can make it better and make a difference. And I don't have anything else.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate you coming in and talk to us. And we'll have you back here in another month or so, and we'll see how things are going. See if you're still thick-skinned in a month or so.
I'm hoping that I will be. Hopefully my skin's a little thicker.
And your wife's not going to be beating you up too bad. It says, Walt, the phone's ringing off the hook,
Yeah, she's doing that now.
Oh, I know. But that's great. I'm glad that there are people in our community that will take this burden on and have this desire to do it, because really the bottom line to any kind of community effort is you really need to desire the office, because you're not doing it for the money, and
That's right.
and I think people want that a better place to live, great things for their family and their children and for their neighbors. I think people really down deep, I think we all want those things, regardless of what side you're on. We really all want the same thing.
And at the end of the day, we all are just people.
That's it. Right.
And let's make the community-based the best for the people.
It is. It's a great place we have now. We'll just have to keep it great and keep making it better. So we'll do that. And again, Walt, we'll see you in a month or so, and we'll talk again.
Thank you very much for your time.
Sure. Thanks, Walt.